Welcome to Double Vision Podcast. We're identical twin sisters who grew up with retinitis pigmentosa, a degenerative eye condition. I'm Jenelle, born 4 minutes earlier, so naturally I get to go first. And I also work as a therapist, so I'm drawn to stories of healing and resilience.
And I'm Joy. I work in the field of education, and I'm also a writer. I like to bring a creative lens to how we talk about blindness.
Though we look alike, we've often seen this disease and life through very different lenses.
That's why we created Double Vision Blog, to share our stories, our struggles, and our laughter,
which is now morphing into a podcast
to remind us that there's no single right way to navigate blindness.
On this podcast, we focus on the social and emotional impacts of losing vision,
the parts of the journey that don't show up on the eye charts.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Double Vision Podcast.
Can we call it Quadruple Vision Podcast?
Yeah,
maybe we should
for today. So we've had two special guests today. They are our husbands. This is Torrey to my left. I'm Jenelle.
And this is Benjamin to my right. I'm Joy.
And we invited our hubbies to this episode so that we could talk a little bit about access intimacy, which Joy's going to explain to you today.
Oh boy. Okay. Tell others.
So access intimacy is a term that was developed by a disability rights activist, Mia Mingus. Coined. She likes to actually specify that it was coined, that she did not make it up, but that she gave a name to something that already exists.
Yes.
Which I love. I love naming things that many people experience, which in the case of access intimacy is something you can experience with either a stranger or someone close with you, like a friend or family member. And it's basically this idea that you can be in a situation or out in public where maybe you don't have access to everything you need, but there's someone who notices that access need and delivers it in a way that is in it with you versus just, doing something for you or overhelping or a lot of the things that many of us in the disability community experience. The great explanation. And access intimacy, it was one of those things when I first read about it in Mia Mingus's podcast, it gave language to something that I was like, yes, that's exactly what happens when I feel like someone is in it with me. My access needs are their access needs. So I've experienced that so much over the last 2.5 decades of being married to Torrey, and actually 3 decades of being together as a couple. It's such a subtle thing, right? So it's kind of hard. And Ben, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just noting that the subtlety of that. It's almost the difference between it's like anticipating your needs, what you actually need, instead of what I think you should need. Right. So
I like that.
So many times I think we just get conditioned in our own little, this is what I would need in that situation. And so sometimes empathy can be like that, where we're like, oh, I'm trying my best to empathize with the person. But true empathy actually is really getting inside of the other person's being in there and submitting to them a little bit and having a little bit of an openness, holding that safe space for them to be able to express what they actually need, as opposed to what the story is, the narrative is that you assume that they need. And so I think for me, I find myself always, and I think that's where it's deepened over the years too, because I initially maybe would have gone into, especially as we started dating when we were 17. I didn't know. And your vision was different then too. So it's been such a growth journey on both ends. But I think as we've deepened in our relationship and our communication, and also our own maturity as human beings, being able to communicate well with each other, it's been more about that learning to create those safe spaces for you to express what you actually want. And for me to be able to hold very loosely to what I think or have opinions about.
Yeah.
And this is just in general, but especially when it comes to this access intimacy.
Well, yeah. And I've actually appreciated that there's been a couple times I'm walking with you and I've tripped or I've fallen, on stairs. And I think some people remember there was that person and she was really bothered that you didn't hover over me. She was like, doesn't she need, she was just so bothered that you weren't hovering. And then it kind of became this point of contention where I'm like, yeah, I think she thinks you should have helped me up to her gate or helped me to her house. And you were gotten out of your car to be this chivalrous knight. And you were a little bit defensive about it. And I wasn't really sure what I thought. I just knew that she was bothered by you not getting out of the car to help me, but also thinking in my mind, gosh, I'd rather have the opportunity to trip down some steps than a husband who would like hover over me constantly, and where, because I feel like then you're not, in my mind, you're not thinking about my vision most of the time. Most
Right.
of the time, you're just thinking of me as a person who sometimes needs help versus constantly thinking about it,
So
right?
That's an important distinction. I think sometimes that is the sense when where it can happen with friends, it can happen with strangers, where you sense that wow, all they're ever thinking about is my vision. That's
Yes,
all there.
you
It's
can
just
tell, right?
yeah,
You can feel it from
totally
someone if
tell.
you're like, if
Yeah.
that's what they're on their mind all the time.
And I've even had a friend comment once, like she said, I noticed that when you and Tori are going along, like he's letting you do your own thing. And it was cool because she was noticing that in a way that she thought it was cool and was trying to sort of follow his lead. She's like, obviously he's the person you spend the most time with. So she was sort of noticing her own instinct to kind of overhelp and was like observing, like, that's not what Tori does. And it actually seems to work well. And that's been a good teaching for, I think, some of the friends and family around us. Yeah, absolutely.
it's hard to, I can understand when people do that because most of the time they're uncomfortable themselves and they're trying to make themselves feel useful. They're afraid of what might happen if they don't step in
On their
because
watch. Like,
on
oh,
their
you get
on their
hurt on my
watch.
when
That's
you're
right.
with
So
me, then
yeah,
it's somehow their fault. And then
yeah. And I think, I mean, even as deep as we have relationship, there's still little pieces of that come up.
Mm-hmm.
But we've learned enough of a rhythm of me being able to distance away from that, reacting to that really fast to defer to. It's really just a lot of just deferring and giving you as much power as possible.
Yeah. Well, because also if I needed you and had to like hold your arm every single time we were out or relied on you to that degree, then you would be the only person I could go out with. You know what I mean? Or I would be so I wouldn't have my own develop my own O&M, orientation and mobility skills, right? Like it
Mhm.
can't we can't have seeing eye husbands like we do with guide dogs, just like we don't rely
The
on our children
harnesses
to be.
aren't big enough.
Yeah.
They look at us weird on airplanes.
I just think it takes some self exploration of like, what are your motives for helping someone? And is the focus on all about them or all about you? Or is it on you together? I love the book Sitting Pretty by Rebecca Tossig. And she
Mhm.
talks about having people in her life who they're looking together to find the entrance to the restaurant. They're both, it's not like, I found it, so I'm going to go in and find a different way to you. It's like, no, we're both in this together. We're both going to try to find how to get your wheelchair access to this movie theater or this restaurant. And it's, I think, can be really similar with vision is we're both looking for a way for you to be able to move about and not get hurt and go up
Yeah.
or down these stairs. It's not just doing it for you, but it's not also having you figure it out all on your own.
It's more of a team thing.
Yeah, it's a team thing. It's you're in it together.
And sometimes, I mean, it can't always be natural, right? There's been times where then we're going to a party and I say in the car ahead of time, hey, I know there's a buffet here. And I know you get really into like
Eating?
no, like talking to people. And you're dripping on me, by the way.
Sorry, that's
Like-
my. To be really clear, those just listening to audio, I'm holding a latte.
Oh, I
and
just
it's
every
the
once in a
ice
while there's like a drip on my
condensation
foot.
from the latte. It's not literally me
It's very
dripping on
startling.
her. Sorry.
But anyways, there'll be times where I'll say, I know that there's a ton of people you want to talk to at this party, and I'm sure there's going to be someone I'm going to be able to find or someone who, but I'm, hungry there, and I'm like, oh no, I don't know where the line starts, or I don't know where there's nobody around to ask, or nobody's really offering, and so I'm like, can you just be aware at the beginning, like once I have my food, I'm good. But sometimes we do have to tell somebody, and I obviously you're somebody I'm comfortable sharing that with. But I do feel like there's kind of a through line as far as if there's anybody who in my life who I feel like has really struggled with having access to intimacy or not knowing how to help. One thing that I've told them that I feel like they've been really like kind of glued onto is the best thing you can say is like, need an arm. That way they feel like they're offering something, but then I have the ability to say yes or no. And I've noticed that people in my life who I've said that to, they do it. They use that. And if that's as good as they can, I know our parents do that a lot. They say need an arm, like that is their way to still feel helpful. And for them to have this indication of like I want to offer something. And if you're going to say no, that's also okay, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Versus just grabbing someone, pushing or pulling or being like, here, take my hand. Like
Right.
there's ways that offer choice and that there's ways that end up feeling objectifying, like we talked about in our first episode of the podcast, of just those ways
Yeah,
that the public interacts, and it can make a big difference.
totally. Can you guys think of either Tori or Ben a time when either you tried to help and it went really wrong, or another time where you thought that you didn't need to help and all of a sudden you were like, oh my gosh, either somebody got hurt or you thought they were going to get hurt, and you really were feeling kind of that sense of regret or responsibility? Any stories come to mind?
For me, it's not so much a story, but I mean, I can remember situations where I either tried too much or, to lead Janelle somewhere, and I felt her pull away a little bit. And so it's like, oh, I was doing it a little too much. And so, like it's nothing specific, but I mean, I can remember those situations. I can't pinpoint like a real example because I don't have a great memory.
But
I mean,
Which is another podcast episode.
right,
Yeah.
right.
I love that though, because it shows like the attunement, like you were in tune with your needs. You were sensing she's pulling away and obviously doesn't, versus people who are in la la land of just like, I'm just gonna push through and assert my
Do what I think is
existence.
right.
Yeah, no matter what.
I know. I think I appreciate when there is much more of a casualness when it comes to a helping relationship of any kind. So if it's more of like like the buffet example you gave earlier, like, oh my gosh, this buffet looks delicious. Let's go up and see what's good. And as you're going through, you're
Yes.
like, oh my gosh, this lasagna is looking really well. I think I'm gonna have a piece of that. Would you want some of
Totally.
that?
Yeah.
Versus
Yes.
like, next up we have the lasagna. It has a da 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 sauce. Would you like some?
Have you guys noticed anything where, because I mean, obviously we've been together a long time. So from, dating and in high school to college to being married and having kids now, for a number of years now, having, teenagers, like have your interactions with us influenced the way that if you're out in public and you see someone who is blind or may need assistance in some other way, do you feel like you're more attuned to that because of just always kind of being aware of our needs when we're together? Or what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm more aware of the spectrum, especially for visual impairment, than most people are, probably because I've seen so much. Well, one, even just change in the past several years, but also like just the wide spectrum. So somebody carrying a cane, there's no part of me that assumes that they, one, need any particular help of any sorts at all. They may they're doing their thing and they're functioning completely on their own. Or like, there's just a wide array. Like they might have more sight than anybody else is maybe assuming. And so because of kind of the insider info on that, I think I'm just more aware in particular.
It's not black and white. You have to
Yeah.
assume that they need help.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. I think if you see somebody who's struggling, whether with blindness or anything else, they'll let it be known if they need help or if they maybe want help. And then, other than that, you don't just go help somebody because you think they need help, or you don't,
Yeah.
right? Because that's...
Although I've noticed with you offer, like, I'm thinking of, we were in Italy recently and you saw someone, like an older woman with a walker, and she was like, was it groceries or something? I just remember
Yeah,
it
she was trying to get her walker up the curb, crossing a street, walker up the curb.
Did she say yes?
Yeah, she did. And she
or
said,
you
"Thank
you more motioned it.
Yeah,
I
because
don't know.
guess she wouldn't understand me.
She's just like, oh,
Barrier.
Mi
Yeah.
dispiace, no parlate italiano. But yeah, so yeah, it was nice.
But I noticed that about you. We go places and you're just like, you kind of have this awareness all the time.
I kind of love that you point out, though, that Tori naturally notices things, because I actually feel like, and this isn't like a slight against you, Ben, you actually don't, but I think it kind of shows the spectrum of like help and personalities. It's not just one personality that can be super helpful. You can have, and you can work with any relationship and personality and like level of awareness. And I think there's other ways that maybe you're attuned or you help. And yeah, not explaining right, but
No, you're not explaining right because now
It didn't sound like he's a total jerk. Very
Edit that.
selfish.
Cut that.
Very selfish.
No, I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
You're very responsive if I ask, but it's not like you'll naturally necessarily notice. But I again, I kind of like that. I kind of like
Yeah.
that I sometimes need to ask. I don't know. It's, yeah.
I think my default is at this point just like allow and then wait for you to communicate. I can get probably be better at being more proactive.
Well, I think that's where it's, again, with that word we talked about on our last episode, interdependence. There's stuff that you ask me for help from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're helping each other. It's not like this like helping relationship. And I think you were on that retreat in Costa Rica, right, Janelle, where you it kind of bothered you where somebody said, "Oh, I do. I love how much your husband helps you." And you were thinking, "Well, I help him too." And it's maybe not like as obvious and it's not out in public all the time, but it's not like this like caretaker relationship, right?
Yeah. I get pretty activated. I've had it happen with clients or different places where I've heard people, who are the helper of anyone with a disability sort of refer to them as someone's caretaker. And not that caretaking isn't a role and that that's a bad thing, but for me personally, I would not refer to their
Strange.
spouses
Yeah.
as
A
their
caretaker. We're in it together. It's a partnership. Like you were saying, Joy, Janelle helps me with so much stuff. Like I mentioned before, I have a bad memory. I have ADHD too. So, I mean, I think that might be part of why I notice things that are outside of, the normal thing. Like when that lady needed help, like I was just distracted by her. And so,
Was really
I,
no distraction.
yeah. And Janelle helps me with tons of stuff, especially like, I mean, like access intimacy with my memory. She helps me. She is my memory. And so it's
Well-
really great. I mean, and then ADHD, like she helps with that so
We're
much.
quite the
It's-
duo though, because basically like he can't remember who anyone is, but he can recognize their faces. I can no longer recognize faces, but I know who they are. So basically we'll run into
We have
someone,
got-
have a conversation, and then afterwards we'll be like piecing together to figure out who we were
done
just
that
talking
too.
to. You can't remember the name. I know the details.
Yeah.
And then the more we put it together, or if he can start to describe, what they look like, I'm like, yeah. Okay, we figure out who it is eventually, but
Yeah.
Right,
it's
right.
a,
I'm like,
it's a fun game.
she's related to this kid that we saw before, Benny's friend. Yeah.
We have the
and,
same, yeah, it's very similar where he'll be like, oh, we're coming up. It's that person. You go to yoga with them and they came to the song circle once or whatever.
Yeah,
and I'll
totally.
be like, oh, so and so, it's
memory
like
in
a
it. Yeah, totally.
combination of both our minds. Yeah. We have one shared brain.
it's really like we're in it together, like either this way or that way. And we're helping each other out, navigating the world, to the best of our abilities, and we're helping each other out. And it's
Yeah.
it's like a team, and it's
And in that way, it's like, this is the best. Like, and even being able to model that for our kids, I think is really healthy for them to see differently abled parents like doing this life thing together and having some because we're similarly wired in some of those ways. And there's so many things that Joy just totally picks up the ball and runs with to keep our household running and keep our family, all the things, so many things, my word. And I think like what an opportunity we all have to do that and to model to our kids and to, even to practice what it means to be interdependent, which you guys share about a lot. This idea of interdependence, I think, we're just practicing it all the time.
yeah.
So I hate to always boil it down to this, what advice would you give? But if there was somebody who was maybe a new partnering newly with someone who is visually impaired or has a disability, do you have words of wisdom or something that you would suggest that partner?
Or even a close friend. Doesn't have
close
to
friend,
be even
yeah.
in
Yeah.
a life partnership.
For me, it's like guess and check. So like if there's no communication and there's no back and forth, like getting to know what somebody needs or what you need, like there's it just doesn't, it won't work if you're just both silent. So,
Mm.
and if you're not trying things. So if you do something wrong, and then you can have an open communication, say that didn't really feel comfortable, maybe next time this, right?
Mhm.
I kind of wish that's how it always was, right? You
Totally.
felt
Yeah.
comfortable enough with somebody to communicate and, get the truth out there, and then afterward you both feel better about it. And it feels like, okay,
Guess
that's
in
good.
check.
Yeah, I
guess
love
in
it.
check.
Yes, in
check.
check. Yeah, I would say the same exact thing. I would add on to not assume and to communicate really well and be okay with that feedback that feels kind of crappy in real time
Yeah.
sometimes. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
feel great when someone has to correct you on that stuff. That's just how it is. And that's okay. Like it's totally okay.
Not going to be perfect.
It's not going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And we can be comfortable with that imperfection and then learning and growing. And then there's next time. And then if maybe it happens again and it's like, oh yeah, remember that thing that you always do? It's like, yes, this is a thing. I'm working on this. And but not getting super emotionally attached to it, being able to like observe that and go, hey, we're gonna have a conversation about this. This is probably not the last time I'm gonna screw up. But I'm opening myself up to be able to do this better, to serve you better, to allow you to feel more safe, and to have those kind of clear conversations and make that just a norm and just okay and just part of the culture of your relationship. The more I think you can do that, the more just long term, it's just going to benefit both of you. You'll learn a ton too.
And to be able to do that, like going both ways, right?
Totally.
Just say, hey, like if you were to say, Ben, like Joy, it would have been helpful if you would have told me in advance that you wanted help with the buffet versus like getting mad at me at the end of the night.
Not a
that I
mind
didn't
reader.
help. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah. Speaking of, what if there was some kind of like a superpower that we could bring into our relationships that would allow more access? What would that superpower be?
Besides mind reading,
Yeah, besides mind reading.
ah,
That would be the best.
that would be the
That would be a
best.
great superpower.
Or even not necessarily superpower, but an invention or something that would change our daily life as far as access. What would be the number one thing you guys would say?
I feel like society is kind of moving towards more tools like that, superpower things like your meta glasses are
Mhm.
like it's moving towards that where you don't always need somebody's help, or you don't need any guidance at all. It would be nice if everything was designed like that from the beginning. It'd be nice.
Universal.
But definitely.
That's yeah. My mind was going toward universal design concepts, and I think that the more we can use things that have use a variety of our senses, the more rich we are as human beings. So in some ways, I think watching you interact with, say, your computer all day long gives me this like, oh, I don't have to do things the same way as everybody else all the time. And I think that both of you teach us lessons on different ways to approach things that are maybe a little bit outside of the norm. So those are really wonderful. So I look forward to more of that happening and more inventions like you say, like the glasses and like things that allow us to use more of our senses to do things in alternative ways. I think that those are
Janelle, you have advice for anyone if they're like, gosh, what's something I could do to show up for my friend or family member or even a stranger to show a little bit more access intimacy? What would you say?
I would say open up the conversation. I have a newer friend that I've just been getting to know over the last couple months, and I loved that on our last we went hiking together recently, and she just asked me beforehand like, "Hey, I was just wondering like when we hike down to the lake, like how I want to be helpful, but I also don't want to be annoying." And she just flat out said it, and it opened up this great conversation where I was able to say, "Yeah, like here's how I like to hike, and I typically like to use like two hiking poles, and it's helpful if you walk ahead of me, then I can get a sense of where you're going. I can still, see enough to see where her footing is landing and follow that." And it would just opened up just such an easy conversation versus her just hoping and keeping it inside and not knowing and feeling nervous.
Yeah.
And or like I've had with other friends just assuming I can't do a certain hike or
Not inviting you.
Yeah,
because they're like, yeah, that
exactly.
drives me crazy.
or just saying, "Oh, I thought that would be too hard for you," or feeling nervous, or someone who's like, "There's a route, there's a this, there's a," telling you every
my
single thing, and
gosh,
you're
so
like,
irritating.
"That's like a little bit too much information." But then it can be really difficult to give that feedback when someone's helping you, because there's this complexity of like, well, I'm grateful they're helping me, so I don't want to say anything that would hurt their feelings or make them feel like I'm not grateful. And at the same
Right.
time, it's not really the kind of help that I'm wanting, which is why there's so much complexity to to any kind of a helping relationship.
Yeah. And it's hard to say in the moment, right? I've had it where at airports where there's been, somebody, a stranger or the person working at the airport where they're really, really overhelping and I cannot seem to find my voice. And even if they're touching my arm and touching me without permission again or like pulling me or just doing something where it's like so overboard and like asking so many kind of what I would consider like invasive questions like, oh, if I get out my money, how did you do that? Well, how do you do that? How do you know that was a five? How do you, and just things that it felt like, okay, I'm just trying to pay him. But like, I didn't want to be like, yeah, you're in, like, I couldn't find my voice. Whereas then I started thinking about it. And then later on that same airport trip, when there was this really nice older gentleman who was helping me off the plane and things like that. And he kept reaching behind because it was kind of like a really weird walkway because there was construction going on and he kept kind of reaching back and grabbing my hand. And finally I said, actually, can I tell you a little bit about proper sighted guide? He's like, oh yeah, please. I've never interacted with anybody with vision loss. And he's like, so I would love to learn. I said, yeah, it's actually where I would grab your elbow and you'd say need an elbow. And he's like, thank you so much for telling me. And I was like, wow, that interaction felt so different and it felt good. But then I had another interaction later where I didn't find my voice again. So I think it's not this like
I'm not gonna get it right every
black and
time.
white. Yeah.
And nor is everybody else, and that you create that safe window for somebody to, but very strong. Like some people would be afraid to maybe communicate that strongly to someone. And I think for as a fully sighted person, I resonate with that person's response, which thank you so much for telling me that. This is the first time I've interacted with somebody with a visual impairment. And there are probably way, way more people than not that that's exactly their story. They just don't know. They have no idea. And they also don't know that spectrum also of like where you are on that spectrum of being able to see and what you could do. And so that's where it becomes then a real gift because then that's soft to other people's abilities. And,
You bring up though, Joy, about finding our voices, because from a mental health standpoint, that's a real experience that a lot of people have, vision loss or not. We can go into sort of a freeze mode in our nervous system when we don't feel safe. And that's a very protective response that our bodies have. There's nothing wrong with it. So if you've ever felt like shame about like, how come I couldn't speak up for myself? Or
Oh,
how
a
come I
lot.
just froze?
A
Yeah,
lot.
I just want to help you release that shame, because it's
Yeah.
not yours to hold. It's actually such a human experience to feel like. Ben and Tori, have you guys ever found times where you have your voice has felt frozen or you haven't been able to communicate what you wanted to?
Never. All the time. So yeah, definitely. I feel like, it's part of human nature, just like not knowing when to talk, or if you're nervous to talk, or you feel like you're going to get judged, or you feel like you're not doing something right. And that's the thing that kind of holds us back from making those
It's vulnerable.
communications. So you have to put yourself out there, like saying, I don't know what's going on. Can you help me? Right? That's a hard thing to say
really, yeah.
from, for anyone. So just being able to communicate, and then also, on the other end of it, saying what you need when you need it. That's not easy to do either. It's not easy to say, I'm going to need your help with this because I don't know where I'm going, what gate I'm going to, or anything like that. So it's hard to be vulnerable both ways.
I've also really appreciated, I think you're really good at this, Tori, you too, Ben, humor. I think handling things with a lot of humor and being able to, even with strangers, I've had this too, where I can joke or they joke and it just kind of brings some levity because it can feel like really heavy sometimes, the stress that you're in and like, while traveling or being in public, it can feel so vulnerable that it kind of takes you out of that heaviness of the moment to kind of laugh. I even had like, there's friends who, even if they try to have a conversation like you were talking about earlier, Janelle, before hiking, there's people who like say it naturally and you feel good. And then there's those moments where you feel really caught off guard. Like I had a friend a few years ago, we were going to hike that Valito trail in Laguna Beach. And she said, in front of our group of friends, "So how do you want to be treated on this hike?" And I was like, felt that instant, like my kind of resistance of like, what is she? And then I have another friend who's just so funny. And she's like, "Yeah, do you want us to throw rocks at you as you hike, or what do you want to do?" It's just like brought the funny moment. And the same friend, like when we're at public things and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous right now." And she's like, "Okay, do you just want like a code word? Like we just say, how about you just say peanut butter if you need my help?" I'm like, "Okay, peanut butter." Like it just, brings some fun into it. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll just echo that and say that you receive that well, and your sense of humor really rolls with that really well. So that's an
At
approach
times.
that, yeah, but like for the most part, I think you understand like how much equity laughing together can buy you with somebody. So like the second that you find this commonality of something to like to laugh about, then you're becoming more connected. And I do think humor is just this beautiful tool. And that I know the friend you're talking about that has the great sense of humor who's able to roll with those things, and she's very gifted at
Shout
that.
out to
Yeah. And yeah, what a way of like disarming, you know. There's obviously an inappropriate way to have humor too, I'm sure. I don't know what that is about. I'm sure you'll let us know.
Or teasing or a lot of sarcasm, those can be over the top.
Slippery slope.
Yeah.
But it depends on the person. And I think that's one of the things I appreciate with the relationship, that the friendship that the four of us have had for so many years, is we laugh a lot. And I think it helps us not to take ourselves too seriously, not to take our challenges too seriously, and it's just to be able to enjoy life because, hey, we're here. We're having these unique experiences, like you mentioned, Ben, and why not laugh about them sometimes?
Yeah, totally.
Good medicine.
Yeah. Well, anything else that anyone wants to add or ask about access intimacy?
Has there ever been a time where, I mean, this is for Joy or Janelle, has there been a time where you were trying to put out the signal that you needed help and we just didn't get it, even if we weren't distracted, we just didn't get
We were
it.
just
It was like,
dense.
right.
I think there's been times where I've been and the girls are in a dark restaurant. They're like way ahead, and I'm like, "Help me," but I don't want to call out, "Can you guys help me?" Because that's awkward. So I'm just like sending telepathy messages. "Please come back. Please come back. I'm still back here." But I don't think that happens often. But there's definitely times. It was nice when they were little, where when I first got my guide dog, where then I could just keep up at this faster pace on my own. And that obviously my guide dog since retired. And so sometimes you don't move quite as fast with my cane. And so that's definitely a thing. But even my girls are pretty aware, but again, not in a hovery way. Like I noticed my older daughter, who's 19, she kind of will shuffle her feet like and just kind of walk loudly in front of me. I think to just kind of give me like signals without having to be like, I just noticed she kind of walks slower and intentional like that. And I always like that. I feel really like I'm kind of with her. She's aware that I need help, but she's not like back there like trying to grab my hand. She's just like moving at a loud pace.
Right. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's like I think, and again, those are the things you don't ever have like a conversation. Can you shuffle your feet a little while you walk? Like, right? It's just some style.
Can you wear these bells?
Yeah. I did when I was watching my niece this weekend. I was like, she should have bells on because she's 16 months old. And I kept listening for her feet. And sometimes like her feet were so light that I'm like, where's she?
I have heard of blind parents putting bells on their kids' shoes. So there are so many adaptive ways that you can plan ahead. And then there's natural things that kids and people, I think kids are the most fascinating to watch because with all disabilities, you just kind of see the wheels turning in kids' heads and they just kind of find ways to adapt or meet people's needs in really seamless ways. It's pretty
Without all the
amazing.
weird shame programming. It's like, I shouldn't ask
Exactly.
this question. They just go, well, they'll just say what they're thinking in a
Yeah.
really transparent way. And that is, we can all learn to be like kids more.
Yeah. When my younger daughter was little, she used to just instinctively, even as like a 3-year-old, like take my hand and put it on something to feel it. And I didn't feel myself like I mean, if an adult or somebody did that, I would be like, feel so much resistance. But I'm like, she's 3. All she's doing is thinking like, mom needs to see this or experience it in a different way. And she's going to do it with her hand. So
That is such a good point, though. Like the experience is so different depending on who it is, right? Like I think if Tor, if you were to put my hand on something, I mean, you don't really do stuff like that, but I think I would feel the intention of because of our relationship, and same with like a child. You just feel that as really easy versus I've definitely been in public before where someone has done something like put my hand on something when I'm like, why are you touching me without asking? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
just there's that line
Yeah.
between
Don't cross it.
yeah.
It's interesting what you guys are talking about, like with like kids with bells on their shoes or bells like on their person. Are there other tools that could like I would be open to wearing bells if I needed to.
I will second that
Like,
motion.
Yeah, I
I-
think if you were to wear like a orange pointed hat everywhere we
Yes,
go,
do
I'm
that.
just
Like
I'm
a
gonna
caution
You could
cone?
wear a
Yeah.
vest, Ben.
Yeah.
Like a crossing guard vest.
crossing
I think
guard
that would
vest.
be. This
Yeah.
is a great solution. I think we
Uh,
should just
Bells and crossing guard vests for us.
market that.
Hmm
It'll go crazy. The blind community would be like, what the
What are you
heck?
doing?
could decorate our car with streamers and just a really high contrast colors. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a good question. I feel like in general we've made a lot of those adjustments, but I'm sure there's always more that could be made. I'm just having difficulty in the moment
It
thinking
would
of
be nice, like, when you pick us up sometimes, like, from places, or you pick me up from Yoga Ben, and sometimes because our car is like the same color as many cars. And so I feel like sometimes I'm just like listening for you to roll down the window because I've definitely stepped in the wrong car, opened a door before, and someone's like, hello. I'm like, oh, never mind.
Yeah. I mean, I sometimes when I roll up, I'll intentionally turn the music up so you'll know.
Yeah, that's probably better. No,
But
Yeah, I unlock and lock the door so
I heard you do
so
that.
you can It's like, where is the door
click, click,
handle?
click,
So
click. Yeah.
And
know what
again,
it is,
not
'cause it's
anything
clicking.
you had a conversation with Janelle about, right? You just
Right.
do it. Janelle wasn't like, can you unlock and lock the door
Right.
loudly so I hear you?
It's tuning in. I think that just keeps coming back a little bit. Is this like there's this in syncness? There's a tuning in. There's like a shortening the distance between having to do the guesswork so that we can communicate better.
Well, we appreciate the two of you coming
Yes.
on the Double Vision podcast to have this conversation and just your openness and the fun that you bring to this experience.
We love
I
you
love
too.
you too.
We love you too.
Yes, all of you.
We told them to say that. It's
Yes.
scripted. There's a big sign.
Especially you on the left. You're the best.
Thanks.
I wasn't talking to you.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I love you too, though.